Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Captioned Life podcast, a podcast about how comics and pop culture impact life and society, and vice versa. Coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Kevin.
And from Indiana, I am Sean. Before we get started with this episode, please hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on, and follow us on social media under the username @CaptionedLife on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, you name it, we're probably on it. And you can also find out more information about us and past episodes at thecaptionedlife.com.
All right. Hey, Sean, I know you hate when I do this, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Why? What is the one rule, Kevin?
No, here's the deal. I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Okay. We're going to come back to it at the end if you think of an answer. But if we were to bury a time capsule for the year 2022 for people to find in 50 years from now, what would you want to put in it? Okay, that's the question.
Okay.
Because of all the things that we have going on from day to day in our world, and something like this, because I remember doing this as a kid at an elementary school. But what would you want to include that is a snapshot of this time and place? Maybe it's a download of this podcast. Who knows? And it's a goal for us on this podcast to be current and to look at how our society is reflected in the fiction that we consume and vice versa. And today we're lucky to have a guest joining us that does a really good job of all those things in the projects that he creates. So we're thankful to welcome Alan Brooks, who is a comics creator who also teaches writing at Regis University's Master of Fine Arts program in the Lighthouse Writers Workshop. His award-winning weekly comic in the Colorado Sun, What Did I Miss?, has been praised for its direct engagement on social issues. And this guy's TED Talk on the importance of art reached 1 million views in 2 months. Alan has previously written the graphic novels The Burning Metronome and Anguish Garden, and he's here today to talk with us about his latest work, Grieving Mall. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. So whenever we have a guest on the show that is involved with comics, we always like to ask them the same question, which is, what is your comic book origin story? How did you get into comics? What or who inspired you to get into that? And what has led you to being in the field that you're in now?
Yeah, I love that question. All right. So my dad is a journalist. He grew up in the 50s, and he was in the comic books. And he especially liked Nick Fury's Howling Commandos, because at that time, that was the only place that he could find a Black character in any comic books. One of the Howling Commandos was a Black character, Gabe Jones, who played jazz, I think. Anyway, so when I was 5 years old, my dad was like, he wanted to encourage a love of reading. And so he actually bought me my first comics. And it would have been Carmine Infantino drawing The Flash in the early 80s. Flash was on trial for murdering the Reverse Flash. And those are the first comics I read. And so I was into comics that whole time, basically my whole life, but I didn't know anyone else who liked comics until maybe 10 years old. I met a dude who went to another school who liked comics. And within a year of that, my mother was looking in the paper and she was like, "Hey, there's this thing called a comic convention. Do you think you would like to go to that?" And I was like, "Yeah." This is back in the 80s, so she could drop me off. This is when you drop off a 10-year-old.
All right.
Yeah, so she dropped off me and my friend, and we were the only children and the only Black people, but it was the first time we were around anyone else who liked comics. So it was like the first time I felt a part of any group, period. And it was wonderful. And so, that's been a part of my life for the whole time. I've always been reading comics, and when I was young, I thought I was going to draw them, but then I got involved in hip hop, and girls liked hip hop better. So I got waylaid. But so only a few years ago did I decide I would write comics. And I put out the Burning Metronome in 2017. I did like a Kickstarter, and I was working. I talk about it in my TED Talk, but I was working this square job, like selling insurance, wearing suits. It was terrible. And I quit that and tried to write a graphic novel, and it sort of led to all of these things. So that's the answer to that question.
So from everything that we've read about you, from listening to your TED talk, you seem like a really creative guy. Why the graphic novel medium?
There's something so, obviously it's been a big part of my life. I mean, I've always loved comics. The only time I didn't read comics regularly was in the 90s. And I think that was just kind of it was the quality of a lot of the comics at the time. I thought I'd outgrown them. But I find with comics, it's one of the few, maybe the only visual medium where one or two people can tell an intimate story. You know, like with movies, there's, it has to be a crew of people. With animation, the same. So with comics, you can get these very intimate, individual stories. You get these slices of life. And the way that you interact with the comics as a reader is you control the pacing. Now, there's certain things that creators can do to encourage you to read faster or slower. But ultimately, comic books are a collaboration between the reader and the creator, because you have to be engaged. You're not like sitting back passively while it's happening. So I love that. And also I love that reading a comic is such a private thing. Like it's hard to sit with someone else and read a comic book, right? So
can't read it out loud.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're like totally immersed in a way that you aren't with film, television, or animation even. It's like just an individual experience. And I think that only comics has it to that degree.
Yeah, my daughter is a young reader. She's 6 and she's into comics, and like she's got a couple of things, and she reads to us at bedtime a lot of times. And she's got a couple of things that she will like try to actively like. So in this panel, Belle is talking to Mrs. Potts, and like, she's trying to describe Beauty and the Beast to us, but like it hits differently when you can actually absorb like the visuals of the comic, as well as like, because that's a key part of the story. Half of the story is implied through the visual. So you just reading the dialogue isn't always going to make sense.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
Kevin, you have the next question, don't you?
No, that's yours, buddy.
Question tag.
Question 3.
You already said your question?
Yeah, that was what we were talking about. Why the graphic novel?
Yeah, but I don't think you asked your question though. I think you just went into talking about that, right?
No, I asked him why the graphic novel medium.
Okay.
He did ask.
Okay. All right. So how has what you've accomplished and learned from the business impacted you as a writing teacher?
There's a guy, Melvin Van Peebles. He passed away a couple months ago. I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I know Melvin Van Peebles.
Oh, word. Okay.
Famous film director from the 70s, Mario Van Peebles' dad.
Yep. So that dude's a hero to me because of his determination, to make things and to have his art out there. And one of the, I guess, getting to the answer to your question, he wanted to make film. He wasn't getting traction here. He heard a rumor that if he published novels in France, he would get like city support to make a film. So he moved to France. He didn't know French. He learned French, started writing novels, and then started making movies. And those movies are what got him doing stuff here. And there's an interview with him when he's in France, and it's with subtitles. He's speaking French. This is from the 60s. And they ask him, if you're an American, why are you publishing novels here? Why aren't you trying to publish more novels in the American market? And his answer was that American publishers were only interested in the suffering of the Negro. Basically, that as a Black creator, he was not able to write about the full human condition. Like the only thing that they wanted to write about was his suffering. Now, me, 60 plus years later, I have a literary agent who is pushing my stuff to publishers, and he is running up against the same things. Like he said, like, it's surprising to me And he said it was embarrassing to him, basically, but he's finding that publishers are more interested. Like if I were writing a story about how mean white people were to me, or if I were writing about suffering police brutality directly, those are the stories they're ready to publish. And he's like, you do write about social issues, but you do it through sci-fi and fantasy, and you use comic books, and it seems to be hard for them to understand. So the answer to that question is that what I've really learned is if I'm waiting for somebody to decide that I'm a writer, then I would still be selling insurance. Like if you want to do it, there's no better time than now to do it. Like we have the technology that makes it possible. There was a comic called Brother Man in the 90s. It was like a black superhero. And I used to have to go to like black hair places to buy it and stuff like that. But back then in the 90s, if you wanted to put out a comic, I read an article, they said that they had the minimum order was 10,000 comics, right? And so even if you got it down to $1 each, you had to have $10,000 to make them. Now you have the internet. Now you got like advances in printing where you can do small runs like 200-300. Like, what is the reason to not do something?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like just like what you said, everything right now is just more accessible, gives people more opportunities and options to be able to chase that dream. Like, what you were saying with comics, we had a couple people on this show who have been chasing after the dream of writing a comic by using webcomics.com. And I think they said that, it doesn't cost them hardly anything to put something out there, right. And I think you're right. It's just, this is a great time to be able to chase after those dreams. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
It's a lot like if you really want to find an audience, if you really want to share what you have, the notion, like the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come. Technology has made it easier to build it.
Right.
And you don't have to invest into building a baseball diamond in your Iowa farm field in order to get people to show up. And I think that's what's great about this medium is that you can put it out there, and you can promote it for free on social media and things like that. And you can do something that you're proud of, and you can have ownership of it. That's one of the things that we love about doing this podcast, is because it's a creative outlet for us. It's something that we love, and we're here in year 3, still doing it for us more than anything,
Nice.
but still looking to reach an audience and share the story with people.
Yeah, that's the thing. So when I'm talking to students, I'm like, listen, there are tools to writing a good story. There are things that you should know about the form of comics. But most important is make something. Even if you made something bad, you've made something. Like, I've spent my life in comic shops with people who have an idea, of a comic they're going to make. But until you make something, you're just a person with an idea. You can't copyright an idea, Yeah.
I gotta start. I'm full of ideas. We joke about it all the time. I'll mention something to a guest and then be like, "Oh, that's a good idea," and then I'll say I want 5% of it because I'm one of those people that's like I have the idea, but I'm too afraid to take the leap. I like the security of my day job, and it doesn't leave me with a lot of time to like explore those creative endeavors.
Right.
But I want to desperately. And you know what? I felt that way after watching your TED Talk too. So I was like, man, I got to write something down.
Nice.
So Grieving Mall is your last project, and you shared that project with can you say her name? I don't want to make sure I say it right.
Oh, it's Sarah Menzel Trapple.
Okay. It was the Trapple thing.
It rhymes with apple.
Okay.
That's how she had to tell me. She got married recently, and I was like, how do you say it? Trapple.
And so I read a little bit about how you guys met, but can you tell us about the story and your creative partnership with the comic?
Yeah. Okay. So me and Sarah were tabling with near each other at a convention, and I really dug her art, and especially her use of color. And so it was right after I put out my first book, and she gave me some of her, and I had it up on my wall. And a couple years went by, and I was like, I'm going to work with her someday, because, tricky thing with comics, especially as a writer who's hiring artists to work on things, is either we have to collaborate or I have to hire them. And comics are a lot of work to draw. Like it's, 8 to 12 hours to draw a single page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when comics artists charge whatever they charge, generally they deserve it. I just can't always afford it,
Right.
So with the Sarah, I hire her to draw, to color Anguish Garden. And based on how good our experience was for that graphic novel, like Sarah's like dope. Like a lot of artists, you'd be like, hey, what day can you have it by? Let's agree on this date. And then, you might never hear from him again. Sarah's like, I've already written a schedule for the days that I had. Like she comes with this schedule, like of deadlines herself, which I love, right? So I was like, okay, well, listen, Sarah, we got to do something else together. And so basically I asked like what kind of things she likes, because this one was going to be a partnership. It wasn't going to be me hiring her. And as a writer, it's basically like, if I can figure out what the artist wants to draw, whether it's underwater unicorns or space frogs or whatever they want to draw, then I can find the human conflict within that. And so, like Sarah gave me some animators she liked, and, like some manga and a couple movies. She tends to like stories that have don't resolve, that have like a big mystery at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I hate those stories. like I really want things to resolve, and it doesn't have to resolve neatly, but I hate like watching something and being like, what did I watch this for? Like nothing happened, And so basically I had to process all the things she liked and then try to find a happy medium between the things we both enjoyed. And so I pitched this idea and for Grieving Mall, and Sarah liked it. And then we kind of developed it a little more. And then she asked if the main character could be plus size, which had no bearing on the story. And I thought it was a great idea. And Sarah's plus size. And so she designed the look of the character. And one of the interesting things she said in drawing this story, and it's just like a one-shot story, like a standalone, she said that drawing this character who was plus size healed her of some of her own body image issues. Because I guess she's had to draw these idealized, comic book characters. And and that was something that neither of us expected, but it was really wonderful to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, so that kind of goes into our next question for you a little bit, is that we noticed that your comics often tackle important and timely subjects. So Anguish Garden challenges white supremacy through a sci-fi Western tale. Grieving Mall that we've been talking about is about loss and grief. And it's important to note, just as what you said, that in this comic, that the main character is a plus size woman. And so you always have a heavy theme swirling through your society and work? Like, do you go into a book planning to call attention to something like that for your reader, or do you kind of let the story unfold, and if it includes it, great. If not, it's more about the story, or is it like a combination of the two?
Yeah, no, I think it's a balance, right? Like I'm definitely a child of Rod Serling in many ways, Twilight Zone. Even to the point of pointing out that I was born a month and a half after he died in the same city that he died in.
Oh,
so
wow.
I like to joke that I'm reincarnated. But it's important to me to create art that has some meaning, that makes people think about their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But it's equally important to me to create art that is engaging and entertaining. Because if it's not entertaining, then I might as well just be writing a manifesto, right? So, like, I want to write a cool story that's fun, and then the undercurrent ends up being like the soul of it. I tell the story a lot, but when I started researching Rod Serling, I saw that he was not a fan of sci-fi or fantasy. He just wanted to write about social issues, and he did it for maybe 12 years, and he would get censored constantly. And then just had this idea, if I put it in fantasy and sci-fi, I won't get censored. So that's why the Twilight Zone exists. The messages were the most important thing to him. And I think that there's something just powerful about that. Like when I watch definitely original series Star Trek, but almost any Star Trek, most of it makes me think about my life in an engaging way. Like, you know, it challenges my perceptions about things. And I love the ability of art to be able to do that. So I try to create art that does that.
Yeah, I think there's a line that, I don't know. There's several writers out there that are very prolific that have written book after book after book after book, and you wonder, do you the intention behind all of it? Are you in it to write something that speaks to people, or are you only interested in you know, them saying how good it is, like what they say back to you? And that's one of the reasons that we took a kind of different approach to this podcast, is that we wanted to talk about some of these issues, you know, as they pertain to comics, and how the life we live is now being better reflected in the medium, because just like every other aspect of American life, you know, over the course of the last 100 years, comics were very exclusionary. Like there's a list for everything. You know, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball, and you know, Sidney Poitier was the first, you know, black man to win an Oscar, and you know, Black Panther is the first big time black superhero. And the reason we have to address that is because it was so exclusionary for a long time.
Right.
And so, you know, we want to keep pushing. We want to see, and we want to talk to people like you who are putting stories out there that do more than entertain. They make you think. They make you take a look at yourself and your experience and say, I can see a piece of me in that. And I think that the best kind of stories do that, no matter who the main character is, you know, race, nationality, religion, and so on. So kudos to you for taking an indirect way of tackling it. And I didn't think about the parallels to the Twilight Zone until you brought it up, but it is a very good way to look at it. That's a very good comparison. So your next book, we got a little preview of it. It's a kind of a crime noir, and I want to make sure I get this right. You wrote and drew that.
That's right.
And that one's called A Baker's Duckling.
Yes.
Can you give us a little tease of Baker's Duckling, what that is like?
Yeah. So there's this publisher in New York called Akashic, and they put out noir anthologies, like detective anthologies. And they do it by city. Like it'll be like, you know, New Orleans noir, LA noir, and they'll get writers from that city, and they'll all write detective stories that happen in that different neighborhoods in that city. So they're finally doing Denver Noir. It comes out this May, and I am the only comic book person who's in it. So it's all prose, and then they asked me to be in it. And so I picked the neighborhood that's called Baker, which is why the story's called Baker's Duckling.
Okay.
You know, kind of bad play on words for Baker's dozen. You know, I was doing what I could, but
we're big fans of puns and wordplay here.
All right, on. Well, so I did I had a short deadline, and the only time I draw stories when I am not sure that I can get an artist who will hit the deadline. So when it's a big opportunity, something like this one will be like in Targets and, you know, like nationally distributed. Yeah. It's already on like Amazon and Barnes and Noble's website, but it doesn't come out till May. So I drew that one, and that was something. But it's a Black hipster in the Baker district of Denver who has to solve a crime. And it's set at my comic shop, which is Mutiny Information Cafe. And I wanted to do that to honor my relationship with them. They've always been very supportive. But when I had to draw it, I was like, why did I pick this place? There's so much stuff in the background. It took so long. but I was able to draw and write the owners into the story and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that book will be out in May. Like I said, mine is the only comic story in it, and yeah, it's like a 18-page story. I think that's how I know that it takes comics artists a long time to finish pages, because I had to draw those pages. But yeah, I was happy with how it came out.
Is because it's different from some of the other things that you've done. Is there a particular like noir or sci-fi? Is there a particular type of story that you like to write more than others, or do you just let it go organically?
Yeah, I think as long as it means something to me, I'll try any genre.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just have to find what feels legitimate to me. So if somebody's like, hey, can you write a romance novel? Then I would have to figure out what would interest me about a romance novel, because if it doesn't interest me, I'm not going to do it. But once I figure it out, then I'm in there, because I had never written a detective story before. But I've learned to say yes to everything. This is a Robert Kirkman story, which you guys might have heard when he was selling Walking Dead. Horror comics hadn't done well in decades. And so he's in Eric Stevenson's office at Image, and he's like, pitching a book. And Eric is like, hey, the zombie thing is cool, but, they haven't really sold well in years. So I don't know. And Kirkman's like, well, I haven't told you the hook. The zombies are an advanced team for invading alien race. And Eric Stevens is like, oh, okay, let's try that. So then they're making the book. The book does well. They're like 6 months in, and Eric Stevenson comes to Kirkman. He's like, hey, I'm glad the book's doing well, but I don't really see anything about the alien stuff. Kirkman's like, I just made that up. So you publish it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think this idea of like saying yes to everything, embracing everything, because everybody who's a publisher or whatever, they're all just making their best guess, right? Like nobody knows for sure. Like how many people turned on the Beatles? I've heard legends of that, right? Like,
yeah.
So like, I just think I'm not going to say no to any genre, especially if I have an artist who wants to do something in that genre. I just want to create cool things.
Yeah.
People, you not curse on here? I've censored myself like 3 times.
You're fine.
Like okay, PG-13. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think that there's a number of different ways you can tell probably any story in any setting, because it's at the heart of the story has got to be the conflict that drives it. Like I think I've written outlines for things that I'd love to like have the time to like flush out the full details. And one of them is a noir crime thing that started as like a Batman fan fiction. Nice. But then I ended up having to like change it because I'm going to write this one day, and there's no way they're going to just like let me write Batman straight off. So Batman became, a police officer, and then I was like, well, in my brain, I envisioned it as like a Batman, the animated series, vibe.
Right.
And truth be told, it works better that way because they're like the technology, like he's not going to have a cell phone or stuff, some of that stuff is plot device. Like if it's a mysteries in the 21st century are a lot different because there's cameras everywhere, and that whodunit is harder to capture. So yeah, I think it's super important to figure out what story you want to tell, and then let the I guess the setting and everything like evolve around what's really at the heart of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And for the art for that story, I was looking at a lot of Alex Toth art. So he designed Space Ghost and a lot of dope stuff. But he did a whole bunch of like inky noir comics that I found, and I was like, yeah, this is what I need to figure out how to do. Because I can't be drawing like superhero poses in like a noir story. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or could you?
Right.
Well, Alan, before we let you go, we always like to play a game with our guests, and this episode is going to be no different. I have a game that I want to play with you and Sean, and because the time capsule in the Grieving Mall plays an important role in that story, we are going to play a game called Name That Time. So, Sean, this is probably when you want to switch up the view, and then I'll share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead. Actually, go ahead and switch it. Then I'll share your screen, and then I'll switch it.
Let me move this over here then.
Okay.
Share this. I go slideshow so that you guys can't see the answers on the side. All right.
That'll make things so much easier.
Right. All right.
Wow, like logo and everything.
Yeah, I put a lot of time and effort into this stuff because I want it to be like legit. I want it to be like, oh, these guys aren't just like sitting in their mom's basement. Like they actually have some production value to what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what we tell people, though.
Whatever. This is not my mom's basement. I own my own house. I'm a grown up. Okay.
I bought this basement.
Well, in Texas too, like we don't have basements, so this is just the fourth bedroom, the office. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a list of clues found or items found in a time capsule buried in a certain year, and I'm going to give each of you guys a chance to guess what year that time capsule was buried. If you guess it on the first clue, you get 5 points, and the point values go down after that. So, like if you get 3 clues, you get 2 points, so on and so forth. It should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to get a piece of paper so I can keep score.
All right. Are these comic book related things?
No, these are all like world events, pop culture events, things that everybody should be familiar with. You just may have to search that Rolodex for these references. Okay.
Right. And do we have to be like correct on the specific year?
You have to be correct on the specific year, and I will explain it like this. If I put a clue up and nobody has a guess, then I'll go ahead and move to the next clue. If you guess and you're wrong, you have to wait until the other person gets a guess before you guess again.
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So here we go. Here's Name That Time. First year. Oh, let me get up here.
I expected a music cue. The way you did that.
Well, we'll put that all in post.
Nice.
We'll have to do that. Yeah.
All right. First year. Please Please Me, the first Beatles album. Would be the first item in the time capsule. Would be the first Beatles album. Please Please Me.
Say guesses.
If you got a guess, you can throw it out now for 5 points.
1962.
That is incorrect. All right, Sean, you want to guess?
I will take the next clue, actually.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
A U.S. ticket stub for Dr. No, the first James Bond movie.
Oh. I'm going to go with 1964, actually.
That is incorrect.
Okay.
Issue number 1 of the X-Men.
1963.
That is 1963. Way to go. Alan's on the board with 2 points.
I was close on my first guess.
Yeah. So my fourth clue was a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. delivering his I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington. And then the last clue would have been the Zapruder film from the JFK assassination. That was 1963.
Mm-hmm.
So Alan is on the board
there
with 2 points.
At least we're like within a couple of years.
Yeah, you guys are right around it. It's
true.
a strong showing on the first clue.
Yeah.
Okay. Next year.
Let me clarify something, Kevin. So like in that instance, Alan guessed and then I guess, and we both got it wrong. Does it go back to Alan or is it free game after that?
You know what? It could be free game after that.
Okay.
After you both have a guess, it's free game.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good.
All right. So first clue of the next year, a copy of Alice Walker's The Color Purple.
I would say next clue.
Next clue.
Yep.
A ticket to the first 49ers Super Bowl victory.
Sports.
I remember
crickets there, huh, Alan?
Yes, 100%.
There's not too much sports in here, I promise.
Yeah. I remember hearing about this, but I can't point a year on it.
I remember hearing of the 49ers. So.
All right. Clue number 3. The playbill from the opening of Cats on Broadway.
I'm just going ahead and take a guess. I'm going to say 1971.
That is incorrect, Sean.
Okay.
I'm going to guess 1982.
That is correct.
Oh, man.
A ticket stub to E.T. would have been next. A Thriller, the Michael Jackson album. Oh, that was on.
And then Zapruder film of JFK's
that.
assassination.
I didn't delete that off there.
Yeah, Cats told me it was probably the 80s.
So Alan is up to 4 points now.
Yeah, I couldn't remember when the Cat. I felt like the 49ers was 70s for some reason, but I couldn't remember when Cats came out.
Yeah, if you're watching the video of this, I forgot to remove the Zapruder film from the slide because I made the first slide and just copied them. So
maybe Zapruder just kept happening.
Yeah.
Just kept releasing it.
All right, here we go. Year number 3, first clue. A newspaper headline outlining Hong Kong's return to Chinese rule. I'd have been impressed if either of you got it on that one. Here we go. Brett Favre's Super Bowl MVP
Sports.
trophy. Like sports.
It's the guy from There's Something About Mary, right?
Yeah, Brett Favre.
All right.
It's probably about the same time as that movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
Well, that helps.
I don't know. See, I remember these things. I just don't remember the year associated with them.
I'll give you another one.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Here we go. Clue number 3.
There you go.
J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
I will say 1996.
That is incorrect.
Ah, dang it.
I was going to guess 1998.
That is also incorrect. A ticket stub to Titanic.
Oh, 1999.
That is incorrect.
Oh, crap. Sorry.
1997?
It is 1997.
No, yeah.
A copy of Elton John's Candle in the Wind dedicated to the passing of Princess Diana was the last one.
No, I knew it was 97, but my mind, I have this thing where like what I say is not what's actually in my head. I don't realize I said it wrong until like way after the fact. No, I know it was 97 because I remember when Titanic came out, I was in 7th grade. And I remember like all the girls loved it and everything like that. It was like a vivid memory of mine from middle school for whatever reason. I just didn't realize I said 99 till like way after. I was like, what?
I've actually never seen Titanic.
They all die in the end.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know how it ends.
That's one of the things I don't like about historical fiction is like, man, you know how it happened. You know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for the sequel.
There is a sequel. There's a Titanic 2 movie. It went straight to VHS, I think.
Oh, wow. That's ridiculous.
I don't think it's related to that, though. But there is a Titanic 2 movie.
So Alan has 8 points now. He got 3 for the first 2, and then he got 2 for this one. So he's up to 8 points. I'm not very good at math. So here we go. Clue. This is the fourth round. There are 5 rounds total. Sean, you can win still if you get it right on the first clue.
Yeah, that's and this is probably not going to happen.
Okay, well, let's see. The first Sony VCR, which you can watch Titanic 2 on, apparently.
Yeah. I have to take a stab at the dark and say,
yes.
And I'm going to say 1983.
That is incorrect.
All
right. Secondly, an 8-track featuring Marvin Gaye's "Let's Get It On."
1968.
That is also incorrect. A video of the first episode of Saturday Night Live. That should say
1975.
That is correct. It is 1975.
Dang it.
A newspaper headline depicting the fall of Saigon at the end of the Vietnam War, and a ticket stub to see Jaws. I really have got to proofread these better.
Just see Jaws.
Man.
I was cheated. I mean, I was born the same year Saturday Night Live came out, so that one worked for me. So thanks.
Yeah. Well, I was born in 1982. I thought about putting my birth certificate in that clue, but
now here's the thing that's kind of incorrect, though, Kevin, is that this clue says a video of the first episode of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So you're saying a video wouldn't exist of that?
It depends on what is being meant here by video, because they probably didn't have video in this sense of like what video meant, like on video cassette. It was probably still.
Well, they invented the first VCR that year. That's why.
Doesn't mean that. But doesn't mean that television, was creating them on videos.
I'm sorry, Sean.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's a valid complaint.
Not complaint. Just a technicality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to say that I've made history here as the second person? Is that?
Yeah, you have locked up victory. Let's see if Sean can at least.
Unless we make this a bonus round, and this can be like
points are tripled. Yeah. Points are tripled in this final round. Okay. All right, final round. Points are tripled. Whoa, my gosh! All the clues are on there at once. I didn't animate it. Okay.
Just go ahead, throw all of them up there.
Okay,
that's fine.
Yeah.
An
iPhone 3GS with Low by Flowrida downloaded from the iTunes store. Documents from a subprime mortgage. A ticket stub to see Iron Man and the Dark Knight.
That'd be 2006.
2000.
A ticket stub to see Iron Man and the Dark Knight. They didn't come out in the same year.
Yes, they did.
2008?
I was going to say 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
They came out in the same year.
Oh, you know what?
Crazy, right?
Iron Man came out in 2008. Yeah, I didn't think Dark Knight did, but I think it did.
It did.
Well,
and then the last two.
But Heath Ledger died in 2007, if I remember correctly. I was going by. I thought he died in the same year, but no, he died in 2008. Okay, I just misremembered that. So, okay.
So I figured that the "Yes We Can" button would be
that's what helped me.
Dead giveaway. Yeah. So, but Alan, despite the technical issues we had with the game, you still won. That was 2008. I got to start having. Well, no, see, that's the thing is I can't ever have Sean like proofread the stuff because then he would.
You have people in your house that could do it.
That's true. My wife is a great proofreader. I should lean on her more, but that would probably mean that I would need to be finished with everything ahead of time. And
not during the interview.
Not during the interview. I mean, I wasn't working on it during the interview, but I finished it close enough, like between, before the interview that I didn't have time to vet it. But it was still a lot of fun.
So we didn't talk about what the prize is.
I'm going to print you a certificate, and I will post it on all social media that you were the champion of Name That Time.
You remember no prizes from Marvel?
No, I don't.
You guys don't remember? Oh, okay. So Stan Lee challenged anybody who could find a continuity error in Marvel to write in. And if they did, he would give them a no prize. And it was a no prize. Like they got no prize. Mm-hmm. But in the letters column, he'd be like, you get a no prize. And then eventually it got to be such a thing that he would print out certificates and be like, you have an official no prize. So if you guys Google no prizes, you'll find. So you can continue the tradition.
I think I've heard about this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we play for pride, not prize.
Or no pride.
I'm just glad that it worked out. I think it's a fun game. You know what? One of these days, I've already pitched this to Sean that we will invite a lot of guests back to play like a big round of games like this. Nice. And you'll get like a very high seed having won. We'll put you at the top of the list. But thank you for playing along with us, Alan. We appreciate that. Before we let you go, did either of you think about what you would put in that time capsule for 2022?
Yeah, I did think about it. I thought it would be a flash drive with TikTok videos in it, just so they could see how the beginning of the collapse of our society.
A flash drive? What's a flash drive?
Right, that's true.
Well, you'd have to have a way to store it. I mean, you couldn't just put links. Those may not exist.
Right.
Yeah, but then people are going to see a flash drive, be like, "What do I do with a flash drive?"
That's true.
This is so retro. I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. Yeah.
I'm gonna go to Radio Shack and see if I can get an adapter for this.
Radio Shack. What's a Radio Shack?
I mean, it's got to be like a smartphone that because that pretty much encompasses how our society operates now. It's just everything is in one device that can, your life is centered around and everything. But I feel like that's such a easy answer because you could be saying that for like the last 5 years and probably for the next 10 or 15. So
true.
2022 is I would say
it's early in the year. You can
it's early in the year.
Too, Sean.
And I don't want to predict something, but what I might do is I might step back and say 2021, and I'm going to say like movie theater, not like programs necessarily, but maybe like posters or something like that, because this is the first year that we've had movies since the pandemic. I mean, I know there a couple came out there and everything, but this has been kind of a a crazy blockbuster year for movies. So I think just, having some posters or something that kind of gives you a sense of like what movies came out and kind of some like factoids on the back of them.
I would choose my face mask and vaccine card. Because it seems timely. But I would put like a Spider-Man face mask in there because he's pretty big right now. Maybe a copy of Alan's book so that future generations can. That's
so funny because that was my real answer. Like if it was going to happen, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely put my book in there. But I was like, that's a boring answer.
Yeah.
Well, and a Betty White face mask.
There you go. One for all the Golden Girls.
Right.
Alan, thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you for hanging out with us, talking with us, and playing a game. Before we let you go, can you tell all of our listeners where they can find you and your work online?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question. So my name is Alan, Alan. People always want to throw extra L's and E's, but it's Alan, 4 letters more better. So I am R. Alan Writes with the W everywhere. So it's ralanwrites.com for my website. R. Alan Writes. I just started Patreon. So there's R. Alan Writes there. R. Alan Writes on Instagram. And on Twitter, there's some underscores. It's like R_Alan_. But I'm whack at Twitter. So, follow me at your own peril.
Well, awesome. And thank you once again. That's going to wrap up another episode of The Captioned Life. We hope you enjoyed listening. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button on whatever major podcast platform you listen to us on. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Captioned Life. And if you like what we're doing, give us a shout out, tag us in your posts. And for more about us and all of our previous episodes, please visit thecaptionedlife.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Peace out.